Saving a patented seed in 2026 can get an American farmer sued. 100 years ago, the federal government mailed free seeds to every farm in the country. Lettuce, onion, bean, watermelon, radish, pea, 1 billion packets a year for 85 years straight. Then one industry decided the program had to end. By 1924, it was gone. Back in 1839, a man named Henry Ellsworth was appointed as a commissioner of patents, and he had an idea that sounds almost absurd by today's standards. The federal government should collect the best seeds from around the world and mail them to American farmers for free. He secured funding from Congress and began shipping packets through the mail, using the franking privileges of congressmen, which meant the postage was free too. Seeds were among the first parcels ever sent through the United States Postal Service, arriving in farmhouses years before any other package delivery existed. Within a decade, the Patent Office was sending out 60,000 seed packages a year. By 1855, over 1 million. When the USDA was established in 1862, one of Lincoln's most consequential and least remembered acts, seed distribution, became one of its primary functions. Not a side project, not a minor line item. At its peak, roughly a third of the entire USDA budget was devoted to collecting, testing, and mailing seeds to farmers across the country. Think about that for a second. A third of the Department of Agriculture's budget going directly to farmers for free. The program wasn't just generous, it was strategic. The USDA didn't mail random seeds. It built one of the most ambitious plant collection operations in history. Starting in the late 1890s, the department sent plant explorers around the world to Russia, China, Japan, the Mediterranean, South America, Central Asia, to find varieties that could solve specific American agricultural problems. Drought-resistant wheat for the Great Plains, where settlers were watching their crops wither. Boll weevil-tolerant cotton for the South, where the pest was destroying the region's primary cash crop. Cold-hardy fruits for the northern states. Disease-resistant grains for the humid East. David Fairchild, one of the most famous plant explorers in American history, got his start in this system. He traveled to 50 countries over 3 decades, collecting thousands of plant varieties, including the cherry trees that now line the tidal basin in Washington, D.C. Niels Hansen was sent to Russia and northern China in 1897, specifically to find crops that could survive the brutal winters of the Dakotas and Minnesota. These weren't casual trips. They were government-funded expeditions with a specific mandate: find seeds that American farmers need and get them into the mail. The packets went to farmers through their congressmen. Each representative could distribute thousands of packages to constituents in their district. By 1895, the USDA shipped nearly 10 million seed packages, containing 162 varieties of vegetables, 73 varieties of flowers, 7 varieties of corn, and 4 varieties of cotton. By 1910, that number had grown to over 60 million packets. Each one contained 5 individual seed packets. Farmers planted them, trailed them, saved the best performers, and replanted the following year. The genetic foundations of American agriculture, the diversity that made it resilient, were built on this system. Farmers weren't just receiving seeds, they were breeding them. Some of the most important crop varieties in American history came directly from this program, or from the farmer breeding it enabled. Red Fife wheat, Grim alfalfa, rough purple chili potato. These weren't corporate products, they were public goods, developed with public money, distributed for free, improved by farmers on their own land. Then the seed companies arrived, and they had a problem. As long as the government was mailing free seeds to every farmer in the country, there was no market for commercial seed. Why would a farmer buy what the government was giving away? The American Seed Trade Association was formed in 1883 with one primary objective: end the free seed program. Their argument was simple. Government distribution was unfair competition that prevented a private seed industry from developing. They called it wasteful, corrupt, and unconstitutional. They had allies. Agricultural Secretary Julius Sterling Morton, who took office in 1893, openly opposed the program he was supposed to run. He called it a cheap bid for favor and worked to gut it from inside, slashing the budget, publicly disparaging the quality of the seeds, and arguing that the government had no business competing with private enterprise. His successor, James Wilson, also favored ending it, but couldn't overcome the program's popularity with farmers and the congressmen who used the seeds to stay connected with their districts. The seed packets were, after all, one of the most tangible things the federal government did for ordinary people. For a farmer in rural Nebraska or Appalachian Virginia, the arrival of that USDA seed packet in the mail was proof that the government knew they existed. The lobbying continued for 40 years. The American Seed Trade Association pressured Congress session after session. Testimony before agricultural committees, editorials in trade publications, backroom deals with sympathetic legislators. Discussions about ending the program gained real traction around 1907, when a proposal was floated to transfer distribution entirely to the USDA while continuing to send free seeds only to school children. Congress debated, then actually increased the appropriation that year. The program survived World War I, though distribution dropped. In 1918, over 13 million packages were still going out. The Senate tried to modify appropriations in 1916 and 1917, but failed both times. But by 1923, the seed industry had finally gathered enough political support. The free seed program was quietly left out of the USDA appropriations bill for the fiscal year 1924. No dramatic vote, no debate on the floor, no public hearing. It simply disappeared from the line items. A program that had been operating continuously since before the Civil War, removed with the stroke of a budget pen. In 1924, the last packets were mailed. The mail bags in the basement of the House office building were emptied and never refilled. An 85-year-old program that had built the genetic diversity of American agriculture was gone, and the only people who celebrated were the companies that had spent 4 decades trying to kill it. The timing was not a coincidence. 6 years later, in 1930, Congress passed the Plant Patent Act, the first law granting intellectual property rights over plant varieties. Seeds were exempt at first, but the door was open. In 1970, the Plant Variety Protection Act extended patent-like protections to sexually reproduced seed varieties. By the 1980s, the Supreme Court had ruled that living organisms could be patented. What had been a public resource for nearly a century was now legally and commercially private property. The thing that gets me about this one is the silence. A program that touched every farming family in America for 85 years, and it just vanished. No public outcry, no replacement. The seeds stopped coming, and nobody outside the seed trade said a word. The aftermath reshaped American agriculture in ways that are still playing out. Without free government seed, farmers became dependent on commercial suppliers. The companies that had lobbied to kill the program became the market. Seed saving, the practice that had driven crop improvement for centuries, gradually declined as commercial hybrids replaced open pollinated varieties. Farmers who had once been breeders became customers. The relationship between the American farmer and the seed in their hand was fundamentally altered, from something you saved, selected, and passed down to something you purchased new every spring from a company that owned the genetics. If you saw the video on my 1970 corn blight, this is where that story begins. If you missed it, go check it out. The same shift that led to 85% of America's corn sharing a single genetic flaw started here, when seeds went from public good to private product. The 1,000 open-pollinated corn varieties that farmers grew before hybrids, many of them were distributed through this program. This is where it was built, and this is where it started to unravel. Today, 4 companies control over 60% of the global commercial seed market. A farmer who wants to plant corn, soybeans, or cotton has a handful of options, almost all of them patented, most of them owned by the same corporations. Seed prices have risen over 300% since the 1990s. Saving seed from patented varieties is now illegal. Farmers who do it face lawsuits. The varieties available are more productive than ever, but more genetically uniform than at any point in American history. And the program that once mailed 1 billion packets of diverse, publicly developed seed to American farmers every year has been forgotten so completely that most people don't believe it existed when you tell them. The irony is that the system the seed industry built to replace the free program now depends on the genetic material that the free program collected. The USDA plant explorers gathered thousands of varieties from around the world, and those varieties sit today in the National Plant Germplasm System, the same seed banks that companies draw from when they need new genetic traits. The public paid to collect it. The public paid to store it. And the companies that killed the public program now use the public collection to develop private products. For 85 years, the United States government collected seeds from around the world, tested them, and mailed them to every farmer who wanted them, for free. A third of the USDA's budget went to making sure American agriculture had the diversity it needed to survive. Then the seed industry organized, lobbied Congress for 4 decades, and got the program killed. No replacement was offered. No alternative was built. The companies that ended public seed distribution became the private seed market. The patents followed. The consolidation followed. The diversity that farmers had spent generations building began to narrow, and it has never stopped narrowing. The program's records are still in the National Archives. The USDA's annual reports from 1862 to 1923 document every seed shipped, every variety tested, every explorer dispatched. The whole story is in the file. It always was. I keep coming back to the image of those mailbags in the basement of the House office building. Hundreds of them, full of seed packets addressed to farmers who would never get another one. There are stories like this built in every corner of American agriculture. Ever wondered what American agriculture would look like today if the free seed program had never been destroyed? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If this one surprised you, drop a comment. I read all of them. A like goes a long way, and if you know someone who had no idea this program existed, send it their way. I'm not done looking. Subscribe if you want to see what I find.